less store, more ball, fewer infractions. This begins in 2020. The future is near. More access, more everyone, more everything.
April 23rd, 2019.
Our story
Show
to
number
tell.
10.
This is history begun. This is the XFL.
What is up, my friends? Welcome to another edition of the XFL Weekend Review. I am your host, The Mark. And on this week's show, Jonathan Hayes named St. Louis XFL head coach and GM. We got a little Jeff Fisher coaching drama, news about the XFL draft date, and so much more. What's up, my friends? Welcome to the show. So how do you get in touch with the show? You email podcast@xflnewshub.com with your MP3 or thoughts, or use Twitter. Use the hashtag XFLWIR. Cutoff time is 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. Remember to leave us a review on iTunes, and we'll read it on the show. So for this week's question, we kind of mixed it up a little bit based on what was going on. It was, who would you pick for the LA and Houston XFL coaching jobs? That's the question of this week. Who would you pick for the LA and Houston XFL coaching jobs? Message us. Well, it's too late now. That's this week's question. Now, next week's question, I got a little ahead of myself, is what non-drafted NFL player would make a great XFL player? So we have this week, this Thursday, all the way through the weekend, we have the NFL draft. And to be honest with you, I'm excited to see what the first round is, maybe the second round. Third round, fourth round, but get into that fifth round area. I'm interested in not who gets drafted, but who doesn't get drafted, because I'm telling you right now, those guys will make a beeline to the XFL, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. And I believe that this week the XFL is going to lay low, but we did have a late announcement today. We'll get into that later in the show. They'll lay low for a little bit because the NFL draft is taking up so much bandwidth of fan interest. But however, after the draft is over, there's going to be a lot to talk about. All right, folks, with that being said, without further ado, let's just get into the week that was the XFL.
It is with great pride that I take this opportunity to introduce to the great people of St. Louis, the head coach of the St. Louis franchise in the XFL, Mr. Jonathan Hayes. Give him a round of applause, please.
Thanks for having me. I want to thank Vince McMahon. I want to thank Oliver. I want to thank Kitty for making all this happen. It's exciting. I want to thank my wife. She had to jump through hoops to get here this morning. It had a storm in Cincinnati, but she made it, and so I'm grateful to that and my family. I see you back there, Des. Thanks for coming. Desiree used to babysit my children, wonderful young lady. And I see her daughter is sitting on my wife's lap. Great town. St. Louis, great sports town. We all know that. Excited about it. I went back and didn't realize that there was 4 other pro football teams here prior to us being the 5th. The St. Louis All-Stars back in 1923. Then there was a team called the St. Louis Gunners back in 1934. They were independent of the NFL. Then, of course, the Cardinals were here from the 1960 to 87, and then the Rams from 1985 to 2015. And the one thing I hope and I can put on the city of St. Louis and make sure that they understand, and we want your support. We want you to be the loudest 12th man when we come out in that stadium. We want visiting teams to not want to come out of the locker room. And because if we feel that support from this city, it will make it very difficult for people to come here and play, because that dome gets loud. As a coach trying to hear yourself call play when you're standing there, it's very difficult. Now, I'm going to date myself. I played in the old Busch Stadium when I used to play for the Chiefs. Oliver gave me a couple extra years. Actually, I played for 12 years. I coached pro ball for 16. I was 4 in college. So, but when you would come over here, the feeling of the sports fans and how much people love their sports here, whether it's baseball, whether it's St. Louis Blues, the college sports are in this state, it's unbelievable. And those are the things that we want to bring back, the passion. As you can tell, I love athletics. My family, all my children have been involved in athletics. I think it's a game changer in creating and helping form how to have teamwork. And that's going to be huge. And the challenge also for us is to, when we start playing, we're going to be competitive. We're going to embrace it. I heard Oliver from back in the back about the new rule changes. I'm excited about some of these new rule changes because now you can implement things and do things to really make the pace of play even faster. So we're excited about that. And that's going to be an absolute ball enjoyment to be able to go out there and give ourselves a chance to really be explosive in different ways, whether it's running the ball, whether it's passing the ball, whether it's on special teams. Every play now is a true football play. And that's what's going to be important, to allow guys to get out in space and make plays with the ball in their hand. So we're looking forward to doing that. And then one of the last things I want to talk to you guys about so that you know that we're here to stay. We want to be a part of the community. One of my main objectives, and as a player, and now becoming the head coach, and Marvin Lewis taught me this a long time ago when I went to work for him. He and I grew up together, but I worked for him for 16 years at the Bengals. But one thing that is important, it's vital, is that we have to become part of this community. And the only way you do that is by going out and giving back. We're not going to be a team or an organization as the XFL. We're not trying to come and just take from these communities. We want to give back to these communities. We want to build on these communities. We want to make it better. We want people to come out and see what kind of athletes and young men we have. I'm going to make it imperative that our guys get out, be involved with the schools, be involved with things that are dear to their hearts, because that's important. That's the only way you get to know a community, and that's the only way the community gets to know you and trust you and believe in what we're trying to do. So I just want to say thank you. It's going to be a great ride. We got a lot of work to do. We got to roll up our sleeves, and we got a short time to do it. I'm already putting together a staff. I'm pretty close to where I want to be. We still got some work and we got some things to finalize, but I am totally excited to be here and be a part of your community. I feel welcome since I walked in the other night when I got to the hotel. Everyone was so gracious and so kind and made themselves so available to us. And it's been wonderful. So once again, thank you all for coming out today. Thank you for having us. And I can't tell you the name of what our mascot is yet, but whatever it is, trust me, we're going to be ready to play come game time. So thank you again. Thanks.
So there you have it. Jonathan Hayes, the new XFL St. Louis head coach, not on anybody's radar, but his background as an NFL tight ends coach, working with Marvin Lewis. He has ties to Bob Stoops. Really liked what he had to say about the community. Again, I think there's a type of coach that the XFL is looking for. And it's not just, hey, I'm just here for the money and call X and O's. It's like, do you believe in what we're doing? Number one. And number two, how are you going to transcend not only the football field, but the community as well? And he talked about community. Mark Trestman talked about community. Zorn talked about it. They all talked about like that component of getting involved with the community and being excited about building something new. He's got a good background. I mean, his son entering the NBA draft. worked with Marvin Lewis for a long time. It'd be funny if he brought Marvin Lewis in as his defensive coordinator, but I doubt it. Out of the blue pick, the more I thought about it, I like it. He's not a big splashy name like Bob Stoops, but he's a guy that's all in, and that's what we need in the XFL. All right, are you ready for some XFL drama? So, according to a report from NFL insider Jason La Canfora, a Baltimore guy, former Tennessee Titans and St. Louis Rams /LA head coach Jeff Fisher, quote, is in line for the XFL Houston head coach /GM job. Huge news. Big get by the XFL. But remember the words, is in line for the XFL. This doesn't mean he is. It means he is in line. That's how I read it. That's how we report it. Now, Fisher coached 17 seasons with the Titans, 5 with the St. Louis /LA Rams. He's been out of coaching since 2017. He led the Titans to its only Super Bowl appearance in 2000. Jeff Fisher holds the record for the most regular season losses by an NFL head coach at 165. He was also a co-chair of the NFL Competition Committee until his resignation in 2016. So having somebody like this would be a great story and a great thing for the league to have. However, an update. Charlotte Whiter tweeted out, just spoke to Jeff Fisher, who says he has been contacted by the XFL, but he hasn't accepted a job coaching in Houston or anywhere else. So he's saying, who says he has been contacted by the XFL, but he hasn't accepted a job coaching in Houston or anywhere else. He's not saying that, according to her tweet, you're not saying you're not against it, but you're saying you were contacted, which Jason La Canfora said, quote, hearing Jeff Fisher is in line to coach Houston of the XFL. Now, this also brings up a point was part of us fandoms thinks that the XFL is already has these coaches in line. But clearly, they don't because they're just reaching out to Jeff Fisher to see if he wants the Houston job. Who knows what's going on behind the scene? So then Jeff Fisher writes back to Jason La Canfora, false news, a little Trump thing, that I am headed to the XFL Houston. Maybe get better sources. Have a great Thursday. I'm sorry, Jeff Fisher. Read the tweet. The tweet says you were in line, doesn't say you were the coach. And according to Charlotte Whiter, she confirmed what Jason La Canfora said. Just spoke to Jeff Fisher, who says he has been contacted by the XFL, which is what Jeff Fisher is in line to coach Houston. So he's in line. Didn't say he was the coach. He said he was in line. All of a sudden, Twitter blows up and Jeff Fisher and all these articles are written about how Jeff Fisher burned Jason La Canfora and how he doesn't know what he's talking about, this, that, and the other thing. And I was surprised by Jeff Fisher's reaction. And then, of course, the venom of the Twitter universe descended upon Jeff Fisher, and they kept talking about 7-9, and the running internet joke was, well, at least Jeff Fisher won't go 7-9. Well, that's because they only have 10 games in the XFL season. Cheap burns. He was playing along with it. But again, I was like, well, but that's not what he said. So Jason La Canfora later comes back and says, just to be super duper clear, Jeff Fisher absolutely talked to XFL about the Houston opening, which is what he said. He was in line, and so did Charlotte. He remains their top choice for that job, and the job is still vacant. And I never reported he signed on, which is absolutely true. So Jeff Fisher maybe needs to read, and I'm sure he was just getting annoyed with all these people asking if he was going to be the head coach of the XFL Houston franchise. And maybe he is. Maybe clearly he blew it up and said that he's not. I don't know what the deal is, but clearly when you read the language, but people just assume, they like half read. Because I read that, I was like, well, that's an interesting way to phrase it. So in our article, It says, breaking, Jeff Fisher in line to coach XFL Houston team, Jason La Canfora. Hearing Jeff Fisher is in line to coach Houston of the XFL. Followed exactly what he said. So Jeff Fisher needs to potentially read exactly what Jason La Canfora said and actually take that heat to the fans and the people calling and blowing up his phone. And he could easily respond to Jason La Canfora and say, or even not, just post a statement. I'm not going anywhere, something along the lines of, I don't know what he can and can't say, but to say that it's false news, that's not true. It was legitimate news because Charlotte said, just spoke to Jeff Fisher, who says he has been contacted by the XFL, but he hasn't accepted a job coaching in Houston or anywhere else. He could have retweeted Charlotte said and been done with it, but he didn't. He went after Jason La Canfora and didn't read it. So I'm team Jason on this one. And for everybody that blew up on the Twitters and there was articles written about Jason La Canfora, you're all wrong. You're not reading. Pick up your glasses and actually read it. Okay? New XFL St. Louis coach Jonathan Hayes joined George Sells on the KMOX's Total Information show. He talked about football returning to St. Louis, team names, and specifically the XFL Draft. Some notes on the interview is XFL brings a fast-paced play, excited to bring football to St. Louis. XFL is not competing with the NFL. We've heard that multiple times. It is not going to be a feeder system for the NFL. It's called the NCAA Division I college football is the feeder system. Now, he wasn't nervous about being like the AAF. He said in the interview, he has no idea what the team name is, that the coaches don't know. So no one knows, not even the coaches, what these team names are, which every time a new head coach is announced, everybody, and we'll read them in the tweets and in the Facebooks and whatever, what's the team names gonna be? Team names matter more probably than the coaches and players. Of course, again, he wants to be part of the community. He said the XFL Draft will be in mid-October. Now, if you remember, Oliver Luck had said that they will do a draft around the time in September when NFL Cutdown Day is. So I'm sure now the coaches are starting to get a schedule. I'm sure they're going to wait that out because players might shift this, that, and the other thing. The season will start, but the XFL, let the NFL season start. See who makes squads, who doesn't, who gets cut, who's not interested. It's going to be lots of wheeling and dealing. And then mid-October, which will be a lot of fun for us to know who is out there, who's not on a squad. Somebody like Johnny Manziel, Colin Kaepernick, or two big names that keep floating out there. But are there other guys out there too that would be potential XFL draft? They have to do, I don't care if it's televised or not, you got to throw that draft on your YouTube channel and Facebook so us fans, us hardcore fans, will check it out. So look for XFL Draft in mid-October. Also, teams will have a couple of football, quote, showcases in their cities leading up to the draft. Bring in some people, invite some people to camps in that city. Maybe to get an idea of the player pool in the area. So even that is going to be cool too. So XFL Draft looking like mid-October with a bunch of showcases. Like fans, this summer, there's going to be a lot going on between now and February 2020. Bob Stoops was the first XFL coach named in the new reimagined league. This was back in February, however. Since then, we have not really heard much from Coach Stoops. That is until now. Chris Woods has been named defensive coordinator for the XFL Dallas franchise under Bob Stoops. He is the former interim head coach and defensive coordinator at Texas State University. For that, he was in charge of defensive quality control at the University of Oklahoma. I wonder how much you get paid for being in charge of the defensive quality control in college. Bob Stoops' staff starting to fill out. We have a defensive coordinator. I am sure we're going to hear more staff hirings in the weeks to come. We've been hearing a lot about Oliver Luck talking about TV deals and when the TV deal is going to announce. Well, one nugget that was dropped during the announcement of the new head coach, GM of the St. Louis franchise, Jonathan Hayes, that was dropped by Oliver Luck. The XFL TV deal seems already in place and close to being announced. Luck said the XFL has a deal with, quote, 2 very powerful media companies, close quote. 2 games a week will be on network over-the-air television, and 2 games will be on a major cable channel. He even mentioned those broadcast partners were at the Spring League games doing testing. He stated the partners were pleased with the XFL rule changes and getting used to the fast-paced play. This TV coverage is significantly better than what the AAF had. The AAF's first game drew solid ratings on CBS. Then games were all over the place, from the NFL Network to TNT, CBS Sports Network, and on BR Live streaming service, which made the games kind of hard to find. The XFL approach is very different. Plus, there are reports that the American Football Alliance was paying for their own airtime anyway, something that it seems like the XFL will not be doing. Now, Luck made it very clear that the XFL is nothing like the failed AAF. Quote, "We believe we're well on our way to a successful launch in February of 2020. We've got a great business plan," close quote. Totally believe him on that. Now, here's the kicker, friends. TV upfronts, which are when TV channels pitch their fall shows to advertisers, they're in May. So don't be surprised if the announcement comes then. Keeps kind of saying that we're going to announce it soon. I think that's just to help with other aspects of their business. So potential sponsors. I mean, you got to say like, hey, we got a great TV plan. We can't announce it. But they also don't want to announce when they're going to do it, because maybe some dealings, I believe, because the AAF floundered but had good ratings, potentially could have made a little bit of a renegotiating happen, which might have stalled things. Just my theory. So don't be surprised if the announcement comes in May. Why? Because for the record, Fox, which already has a relationship with Vince McMahon and the WWE, will have their upfront on May 13th. So could the XFL be waiting till the Fox meeting to drop the announcement? Stay tuned. XFL News Hub will have all the details when that comes. But you're talking major cable, NBC, Fox, ABC, CBS. One of those 4. What is the probability? Vince already has a relationship with Fox. I would put that at the head of the list. You got Fox Sports 1 on there, potential other channels. Who knows? Fox News. Maybe they put it on Disney Junior, for all I know. Because Fox, doesn't Disney own Fox now, or ABC? I don't know. I don't know who owns what, but it seems like Fox is likely, and it seems like the TV upfronts is when we might hear it. So we're getting more details on how all this will work. Well, the XFL will be holding a 2-week long league-wide minicamp in Houston. NFL insider Howard Balzer is reporting that the XFL plans to hold their league-wide training camp in January of 2020 in Houston, Texas. The practice would be 1 month before the rollout of the first reimagined season of the XFL since 2001. Howard says on the XFL front, league plans to have about 2 weeks of training camp, perhaps 17 days, for all 8 teams in Houston next January. The training camp in Houston would comprise of all 8 teams and coaching staffs at one location. The AAF took a similar approach with a 2-week league-wide minicamp before their season started this year. XFL Commissioner and CEO Oliver Luck has stated he expects team practices to start around late fall after the NFL cutdown day. This 2-week league-wide practice would be in addition to those practices in the fall of 2019. Now, this 2-week practice would likely replace any preseason games, at least for the first season and maybe beyond. It would be hard for the XFL to get fans out during the middle of the NFL's playoff season if they're trying to do preseason games. It just might not work. Close doors, get everybody geared up. The preseason games might even give a bad taste in fans' mouths because they'd be like, oh, the play is horrible, I'm not watching. So looks like that will be under wraps. So the league is getting in gear, and we're learning more about what's going on and how it's all going to take place before February 2020. All right, we'll be back with your social media stuff and so much more right after this. Stay tuned, my friends. There is only one place that you can get all your XFL news. That is xflnewshub.com. We go all the way back from the beginning of time for the XFL all the way up to today's stuff, where you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. All those locations to get all your XFL news. We are your number one source of XFL football news from now all the way until February 2020 kickoff. So stick with xflnewshub.com for all your latest information. Follow us on all the social medias. That's xflnewshub.com. Remember it. Write it down. xflnewshub.com. All right, we are back. And remember, our question for next week, email us podcast@xflnewshub.com. What non-drafted NFL player would make a great XFL player? So we got the draft this week, all to this weekend. There's going to be guys left out there. I want to know who you think would be starting great potential XFL players to be part of the XFL draft. On to the start us off on the Twitters. Lots of reaction to different stuff. We cut down to some of our favorite. Hillbottoid Patrick 1 talking about Jonathan Hayes set to be the new XFL St. Louis coach. TW206 says who? And then Hibbolt Patrick 1 says, Jonathan from the Bengals. What, don't you follow the Bengals? Yeah, everybody was a little surprised about this. W. Freeman 87 tweeted us, hit us right back after we posted the whole thing about Jeff Fisher, about Charlotte Wilder at the Wilder things, about how she spoke to Jeff Fisher. We talked about that earlier in the show. That brought it to my attention. But again, people were ripping Jason La Canfora, but we already went over that in the show, that what he said was 100% accurate. Seth Breeze tweeted us and Jason saying, come on, Jason, you got to do better than this. He was right on target. He said exactly what happened. And finally, Toddzilla_SR, he said, XFL News Hub. I found these on XFL Elite page on Facebook. I like LA as well as Tampa Bay logos, names and logos. So I don't know where he found this on the XFL Elite page on Facebook. Don't know what that is, but here are some names we'll just throw out there for you. Houston Roughnecks or Generals, the New York Emperors, New York Grit, and Gladiators, Los Angeles Sabercats and Shock, Seattle Steelheads and Orcas, no, St. Louis Sentinels, Pathfinders and Centaurs, Tampa Bay Tiger Sharks and Barracuda. So these are names and logos. Oh, gotcha. So the name is Tiger Shark for Tampa Bay, St. Louis Sentinels, Seattle Steelheads, that won't work because of the Steelers. Seattle Sabercats, not really sure what that Sabercat has to do with. New York Emperors, that would be interesting. Houston Roughnecks, I don't know. Not really a fan of those names. I am telling you, the XFL has got to knock it out of the park when it comes to these main names. And I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but I like the New York Hitmen. I like some of the old names. They guarantee you they won't use any of the old names, but I do. The New York Hitman is hilarious. It's not right, but it's hilarious. All right, reaction to Jonathan Hayes on Facebook. Derek said, well, we'll see how it goes. It could be all right. Dan says, worst coaching pick so far. XFL with a knockout blow to St. Louis. No local ties, nothing more than a tight end coach that was fired in January by Cincinnati. The only hope we have to draw a crowd is Manziel or Cap, and that is a horrible place to be. Rick says, who? Hey, I liked what he had to say. St. Louis fan. They'll support the team. It wasn't a big splash, but neither was DC with Pep Hamilton. Give these guys a shot. He's hungry. You want a guy that wants to be there. About this whole Jeff Fisher in line thing, here we go. You ready? Ryan, 8-8 or 7-8, 7-9. Randall says 9-7 the first year, then 8-8. We all know him for we'll start LOL. Just going on. 7-9. Nelson says get the bleep out of here. Michael says get ready for 7-9 for 3 straight years. Again, people don't realize that there's only 10 games. Again, there's only 10 games. Albert said, well, Houston team will suck. Jeff, the franchise that clearly never wants to win. Shake my head. A bunch of other bad coaches are like an aluminum can. Oh, Brandon, bad coaches are like aluminum cans. They just keep getting recycled. Eric, 5-5. Finally, he's got the math right. 5-5 or 4-6. Everybody's just with the numbers. Are you kidding me? No one was happy about this. Granted, it said he was in line, but no one wanted him. The fan reaction to Jeff Fisher was almost like the XFL was like, you know what? Maybe it's a good thing. I mean, I think he would be good for the league. He did work with the AAF in some capacity, but he wasn't a head coach. But the jokes about his record, and I always thought he was a good NFL head coach, but I was like, dang, the venom out there for Jeff Fisher. All right, we posted about the XFL, the AAF being officially done. We talked about that last week. Chris says, let loose the lawyers now. I know at least 4 lawsuits that have been filed. Mark says, hope you get your bleep together. XFL, if not, you're next. About Johnny Manziel, open to playing in the XFL in 2020. We reported that this week about the TMZ story. Sampson says he's also open to a line of coke and hookers, so party on. Yikes. Randall says, Sampson, someone had to tell the truth. Chris says, bleep no. Austin, go away. Austin, another Austin says, but they will want him. He seems to blow chance after chance after chance after chance, so who knows? Marcus, well, if at all once you don't succeed, try and try again, I guess. David says, open, where the hell else is he going to go besides the Arena League? Dan says, it's all about selling tickets. We need name recognition to get the fans in the seats or the league fails. Bring on this jackass. At least it will keep us in the headlines. True. Randall says, Manziel is a cancer. AFF was fine. Then they announced the next thing I hear they go bankrupt. Cody, give him a chance. He's only hurting himself by bleeping up. People see his name, they will watch. What I would do if I was the XFL is I would put Johnny Manziel with Bob Stoops. You have your biggest name coach and the biggest name player. You put them on the same team. People are going to watch how Bob Stoops and Johnny Manziel work together. And I just hope he keeps his act clean. But he just came from the CFL, not really sure how that all went. And plus, in the picture that TMZ had on him, he's wearing sunglasses at night. I'm not sure why you're wearing sunglasses at night. Pro Football Talk threw something out there that I was really surprised about. XFL Houston's franchise should try to hire Wade Phillips. I guess because his dad was part of the Houston area. Charles says, thought they hired Jeff Fisher. Dennis says, yes, I'm a Jets fan and wanted him to coach us so bad. Aaron says he's with the NFL. And Scott said he'd be taking a pay cut if he did. Now that would be now clearly Jeff Fisher was first in line for the XFL Houston job. Sounds like he's not going to take it, because then wouldn't he look stupid with Jason La Canfora? I don't think Wade Phillips is going to do it, because he was just in the Super Bowl, wasn't he? For LA or something like that. So he's not going anywhere. But it would be great if he wanted to chill out and be like, you know what? I mean, to go from the NFL to the XFL, I think would be a great move. And he's not getting any younger. Throwing his name out there, I think fans would go nuts, and I think that would be a great thing. On to the XFL TV deal. Mark said YouTube for all those of us outside of the U.S. who'd be able to watch too. Again, people want to know, Mike says, what are the team names and colors? Killian, I could see Fox and NBC, but cable, NFL Network, or something along those lines. I don't think they have anything to do with the NFL Network. They want to stay clear, as Vince has been very clear about not being interested in being even really affiliated with the NFL. And honestly, if they want to go online, they have the WWE Network. I think they should have the XFL Network at some point in the future, maybe after the 3 years. Now, on to our question we threw out there. Who would be your pick for the LA and Houston coaching jobs? Because I'm just curious who people think might be out there that maybe we're not thinking. Chauncey says Mike Riley or Steve Spurrier to Houston. Now, I don't think Steve Spurrier will move. Steve Spurrier is a Florida guy. He isn't going anywhere. So I don't think Spurrier will have anything to do with the league this year. By the way, I saw a video of him like on the sidelines. The dude's like got like a bad limp and everything. Mike Riley could be a possibility. We shall see. On to our emailer. We have Miles checking in. He says, I recommend allowing refs to ensure that defenses are able to substitute between plays. Under current play clock rules, defenses can be limited by substituting only when the offense permits. Ensuing the defenses have an allotted substitute time between plays will allow more players to play and create more diversity in strategy. I would keep the NFL's 2 feet in equals catch rule and the 1 yard downfield rule for linemen on pass plays. I'll also keep the NFL pass interference rules. I would not allow the ball to be fumbled forward, but put the ball at the spot of the fumble regardless of down. Why reward a fumble? That's a good point. I recommend putting mics in each player's helmet so that the coaches can call plays directly to the entire on-field unit. I agree with that. This will create a smoother transition between plays. Doing these things will help ensure a competitive balance between the offense and defense, creating a tremendous, unique product. Like Miles' idea, I'm on board with what he's got to say. And some interesting topics. They are out there. They are listening to us and you guys and getting ideas, because that's how you make a great product. All right, folks. So remember, for the question of next week, what non-drafted NFL player would make a great XFL player? Watch the draft. We'll be watching. I'll be watching. We'll have a breakdown probably next week of some of the top players out there that could make great prospects in the XFL. Remember to leave us a review and email us podcast@xflnewshub.com. Remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We're even on Pinterest. XFL News Hub. Just look us up. Remember, please leave us a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, and we'll read it on the show. And you can listen to iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and Stitcher, pretty much everywhere. Tune in. I think we're on there too. We're everywhere, and we're growing, and we're excited, and we can't wait to hear these 2 coaches, TV deals, team names, players. It's all coming this summer. Hang out with us this summer. You won't be disappointed, and I cannot wait for kickoff in February 2020. That's it for me, folks, and I will see you all later.